This story happened when I was 14 years old. You think you know your friends and you think you know the houses you sleep in, but you really don't. You just know the parts they let you see. I learned that the hard way at a sleepover that I still think about to this day. My friend Leo lived in this massive old farmhouse at the end of a long gravel road. It was literally in the middle of nowhere, surrounded by nothing but cornfields. To us, it seemed like the perfect spot for a sleepover because we could be loud and play manhunt without annoying neighbors. His parents were nice, but they were kind of quiet and strange. When I first walked in, his mom told me something super weird. She said, "We don't lock doors in this house. Not any of them. It's a trust thing." She smiled when she said it, but it didn't reach her eyes. I just nodded and didn't think much of it at the time. We did the usual stuff, playing video games until our eyes burned and eating an entire pizza. We finally crashed in sleeping bags on his bedroom floor around 2 a.m. I'm a really light sleeper, so I woke up a couple of hours later to a weird sound. It was Leo. He was talking in his sleep, but it wasn't the usual mumbling nonsense. He was whispering clearly, like he was telling someone a secret. I froze when I heard what he was saying. "No, not yet," he whispered to the empty room. "He doesn't know. He's still sleeping." A cold spike of adrenaline shot through me because it sounded like he was talking about me. I lay perfectly still, trying to keep my breathing shallow. Then he continued, "I know. Just wait. He has to be comfortable first. That's how it works." He went quiet after that, but I lay there for what felt like forever with my heart hammering against my ribs. It felt too real to be a dream. The house was dead quiet, and I knew I wasn't going to fall back asleep. I needed to use the bathroom, and honestly, I just needed to get out of that room for a second. I slipped out of my sleeping bag and tiptoed into the hallway. It was long and dark, with just a dim night casting these long, creepy shadows. As I walked toward the bathroom, I felt this draft of ice-cold air. I noticed that one of the doors in the hallway was shut tight. It stood out because every other door was open, just like his mom said. On my way back from the bathroom, curiosity got the better of me. I remembered his mom saying they didn't lock doors. My hand was shaking a little, but I reached out and turned the old brass knob. It was unlocked. I pushed the door open and instantly regretted it. It was a girl's bedroom, but it felt wrong. It was perfectly preserved like a museum exhibit. There was a frilly pink bedspread pulled tight with no wrinkles, and a collection of porcelain dolls on the shelf staring blankly into the dark. But the weirdest part was the temperature. It was freezing in there. And there was this smell, like old dried flowers. I looked at the bed again, and my blood turned to ice. There was a dent in the middle of the mattress. It looked like someone had been sitting there just seconds before I walked in. I backed out of the room fast and pulled the door shut. But as I turned around, I saw him. Leo was standing at the other end of the hallway, right outside his bedroom door. He was just a dark silhouette against the faint light, watching me. He wasn't moving. He wasn't speaking. I couldn't move. I was terrified. Then he took a slow step toward me. The floorboards groaned under his weight. "You weren't supposed to see that," he said. His voice wasn't a whisper anymore. It was flat and cold. "That's Anna's room." I stammered something about just going to the bathroom, but he kept walking toward me. "She doesn't like it when people go in her room," he said, getting closer. "She's very private." He was about 10 feet away, and my brain finally kicked into gear. I bolted. I didn't run for the stairs. I ran to his parents' room and slammed the door open, screaming. His parents woke up confused, and when I looked back, Leo had stopped in the hallway. The creepy look was gone, and he looked like a confused kid again. I told them I had a nightmare or a stomach bug. I can't remember exactly. I just knew I had to leave. My dad came and got me at 4 a.m. A year later, I saw a local news article on social media. It was an anniversary piece for a girl named Anna, Leo's sister. She had died falling from her bedroom window 5 years before I stayed there. It was ruled a tragic accident. But I know what I saw, and I realized the most terrifying part of that night wasn't the room. It was what Leo said. He didn't say she didn't like it. He said she doesn't like it. He spoke about her like she was still there. And when he was whispering in his sleep earlier that night, I realized he wasn't dreaming. He was answering her. Some families don't have skeletons in their closet. They have empty rooms they're waiting to fill. I found that out at a friend's house, and the silence there was more terrifying than any scream I've ever heard. This happened when I was friends with a girl named Maya. She was new to my school, kind of quiet and artistic. When she invited me for a sleepover, I was actually pretty thrilled. She lived in one of those brand new subdivisions where all the houses look identical, almost like a computer designed them. Her house was exactly the same way, impeccably clean with beige walls, and it smelled intensely of air freshener and new carpet. Her parents were the same way. They had perfect smiles and firm handshakes, but they had this intense, focused way of looking at you. It felt less like they were seeing me and more like they were scanning me. "We have the guest room all ready for you," her mom said. Her smile stretched a little too wide. She didn't say your room or the spare room. She emphasized it, the guest room. The house seemed normal enough until we went upstairs. Maya pointed to a door at the end of the hall and told me that was her parents' room, and we weren't allowed in there. Then she led me to the guest room. The moment she opened the door, a wave of cold, still air hit me. The room looked like a stage set. There was a single bed made with surgical precision, a wooden desk with one unsharpened pencil on it, and on the wall a series of framed, empty picture hooks. No posters, no personality. It didn't feel like a guest room. It felt like a waiting room. "My parents are really excited to have you," Maya said, her voice dropping to a near whisper. "We haven't had a guest in a long time." Dinner was the first sign that something was deeply wrong. They set a fourth place at the table, right next to me. It was a full setting: plate, silverware, glass of water. But no one sat there, no one even mentioned it. We just ate around it, the empty chair sitting at the table like a silent king. Finally, I asked who it was for. Maya's dad put his fork down and gave me a long, patient look. "It's just a family tradition," he said. His calm, even tone was way more chilling than if he had yelled. "We always set a place for the one who isn't here." Later, as we were getting ready for bed in the guest room, I noticed the closet door was slightly ajar. I went to shut it and saw that it wasn't empty. It held a single set of boys' clothes, neatly hung up. They were small, maybe for a kid 10 or 11 years old, and they looked old-fashioned. "Oh, don't worry about those," Maya said quickly, shutting the door. "They're just from before." I tried to sleep, but I couldn't. The silence in the house was crushing. Around 3 a.m., I heard something. It was a sound coming from downstairs. It was a music box playing a really slow, tinny version of Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. I crept out of the room. The hallway was dark, but a thin sliver of light was coming from under the parents' closed door. The music was actually coming from in there. I tiptoed closer and pressed my ear against the wood. I could hear them speaking in low, hushed tones. "He's almost the right size," her mother whispered. "The hair is a different color, but the eyes are very similar." "He's quiet," her father replied. "The last one was too loud. This one might just work. He seems to like the guest room." A wave of nausea and terror washed over me. I felt Swan. The guest room wasn't for guests. It was for auditions. That empty place setting, the little boy's clothes, the empty picture hooks. They weren't memories of someone they'd lost. They were preparations for someone they were trying to find. A replacement. Suddenly, the music box stopped. The silence that followed was absolute. Then I heard a floorboard creak inside their room, the sound of someone getting up to come to the door. I didn't think. I just moved. I scrambled back into the guest room, my mind screaming. I knew I couldn't go out the front door because they'd hear me. I went to the window. It overlooked the empty backyard. I fumbled with the latch, my fingers sweating. The click it made as it opened sounded like a gunshot in that quiet house. I didn't look back. I squeezed through the window, dropped 6 feet onto the grass, and I ran. I ran through the identical sleeping houses of that plastic neighborhood, and I swear I could hear the tinny sound of that music box chasing me all the way to the main road. The police investigated, of course, but they found a perfectly normal family, a family who told them their daughter's new friend had a terrible nightmare and ran out in a panic. They found a family whose 10-year-old son, their only son, had vanished from his bed without a trace 3 years ago. The police said they were just a grieving family, not a threat. But I know what I heard. I wasn't a guest in their home, I was an applicant. And I can't shake the feeling that the job is still open, and they're still looking for the perfect candidate to finally come home and fill that empty chair. People always talk about the monster under the bed, but I think adult fear is realizing the monster is actually the person lying in the bed next to you. It's about realizing the person you trust most is a stranger, and the doors they lock aren't to keep things out, but to keep you in. This happened with my oldest friend, Sam. We'd known each other since kindergarten, so he was basically the brother I never had. His family sold their house in the suburbs and bought this huge, isolated property deep in the mountains. It was a 2-hour drive from civilization. Since they were renovating the main house, Sam was living in a small, detached guest cabin on the property. He invited me to be the first person to stay the night. It was just going to be us, a case of beer, and acres of dead silent forest. The cabin was one of those A-frame structures, all wood and glass with a big loft for sleeping. It was beautiful, but the silence out there was a different breed. It was a heavy, physical presence that pressed in on you, making every creak of the floorboards sound like a gunshot. The first thing that felt off was the locks. There were 3 deadbolts on the main door and thick, heavy-duty slide bolts on the insides of all the windows, even the tiny bathroom one. "My dad's a bit of a security nut," Sam said with a shrug when he saw me looking. It made sense given how isolated we were, but still, it felt like overkill. It felt less like it was designed to keep people out and more like a cage. We drank and talked, and eventually, the exhaustion from the drive hit me. We climbed the ladder to the sleeping loft where there were 2 mattresses on opposite sides of the floor. As I was getting settled, Sam tossed me a small, heavy object. It was a walkie-talkie. "What's this for?" I asked him. "Just in case," he said. His face was unreadable in the dim light. "If you need me, or if you hear anything, just use it. Don't yell." He paused and looked at me with an intensity that I hadn't seen before. "And one more thing. If for any reason you wake up and I'm not here, don't come looking for me. Do not leave the loft. Just wait. I'll be back." I felt a cold knot tighten in my stomach. This wasn't the Sam I knew. The easygoing, laid-back guy was gone, replaced by someone giving me a set of survival instructions. I laughed it off, pretending it was a joke. "Where would you go, man?" He didn't laugh back. He just said, "Just promise me." I promised. The conversation died after that, and soon the only sound was Sam's deep, even breathing from across the loft. I lay awake for a long time with my mind racing, those strange rules echoing in my head. I was woken up hours later by a noise. It was the sound of the heavy slide bolt on the main door downstairs being drawn back. There was a loud metallic scrape, followed by a solid thud. My eyes snapped open. The loft was pitch black, but I could tell from the silence that Sam's breathing had stopped. He wasn't on his mattress. My heart went into overdrive. I remembered his words, "Don't come looking for me. Do not leave the loft." Every instinct I had screamed to call out his name, to go to the edge of the loft and look down. But the cold, hard seriousness in his voice kept me pinned to the mattress. Then I heard footsteps, not inside the cabin, but outside, crunching on the gravel path. They were slow, heavy, and dragging. It sounded like someone was pulling something heavy. The sound faded into the distance. I was alone in the cabin, and I knew the front door was unbolted. I lay there for what felt like a lifetime. The silence that followed was worse than the noise. Then the walkie-talkie on the floor next to me crackled to life. There was a burst of static, then Sam's voice came through in a harsh, ragged whisper. "Are you awake? Sam? Jesus Christ, where are you? What's going on?" I whispered back, my voice trembling. "Did you hear anything?" he asked, ignoring my question. "I heard you leave. I heard someone outside." There was a long pause. The static hissed. Then he said, "Good, go back to sleep," and the radio went dead. Go back to sleep? The thought was insane. I was wide awake now, terrified and confused. About 20 minutes later, I heard the crunch of gravel again. The footsteps were coming back. The front door creaked open, then shut. The heavy bolt slid back into place with a deafening finality. I heard him moving around downstairs for a minute. It sounded like running water from the kitchen sink, and then the soft tread of his footsteps on the ladder to the loft. I squeezed my eyes shut, faking sleep. my body completely rigid. I felt the floorboards shift as he moved to his mattress. He settled in, and a few moments later, his deep, even breathing started up again, as if nothing had ever happened. I didn't move a muscle until the first gray light of dawn bled through the windows. When I finally sat up, he was already awake, sitting on the edge of his mattress, watching me. "Morning," he said. His voice was completely normal and friendly. "Sleep okay?" I just stared at him. "Sam, what the hell happened last night?" He gave me a confused look. It was a perfectly crafted, convincing look of confusion. "What are you talking about? I was passed out." "Don't lie to me," I said, my voice rising. "You left." The walkie-talkie, the footsteps. He stood up and walked over, putting a hand on my shoulder. His grip was surprisingly strong. "Dude, you were really out of it last night. You were having a pretty intense nightmare. Mumbling and everything. You probably just dreamed it. This place is spooky. It gets in your head." He was gaslighting me. He was looking me dead in the eye and calmly telling me that my reality was wrong and his was right. And he was so good at it that for a split second, I almost believed him. Then I saw it. His bare feet. The cuffs of his sweatpants were damp and dark, and caked on his ankles and between his toes was thick, dark, muddy soil. The kind of soil you only get from the edge of a marsh or a freshly dug hole. I didn't say another word. I packed my bag in a blur, made up an excuse about a family emergency, and got the hell out of there. He walked me to my car, smiling, telling me to come back soon. As I drove away, I saw him in my rearview mirror, standing in the middle of that gravel path watching me go. And as I turned onto the main road, I noticed something I hadn't seen on the way in. About a quarter mile into the woods, barely visible through the trees, was a small, fenced-off area. It looked like a private family cemetery. And one of the plots looked like it had been recently, and very crudely, disturbed.